Welcome to the Founder's Arms. This is a space where we pull back the curtain on the founder's journey. Whether you're scaling a startup, navigating a pivot, or just starting to build, consider this your seat at the table. Here we go over the wins, the losses, and everything in between with the people who are actually doing the work. So grab a drink, get settled, and let's get into it.
I didn't come to London for the job. I came to London for the rave, actually. I think I'm entrepreneurial by nature because I'm where I'm from. We have to innovate because if you're marginalized, you have to innovate. Proper guerrilla marketing. This is early. How do we do collaborate? I've always been at the helm of the work. I actually do the work. I'm doing the creative direction. I'm doing the production. I'm part of that. We want you to make Adidas Originals, the sportswear brand of the street. I was like, cool. How is your brand going to stand out when everyone else is also doing the same thing and all the brands are doing quite formulaic work?
Welcome back.
Thank you.
To the Founder's Arms. Today we're talking about the one thing every founder wants, what most brands fake and almost nobody actually understands: cultural capital. In the startup world, we obsess over product market fit. We live and die by the algorithm. But our guest today argues that if you aren't building for culture, you're building on borrowed time. Leila Fataar, hello.
Hello.
Founder of Platform 13, a venture that doesn't just do marketing, it rewires how brands exist in the real world. Before she was the go-to consultant for the world's biggest disruptors, she was at the helm of global marketing for Adidas and led the charge for icons like Diageo. She's the ultimate translator. She speaks corporate, she speaks entrepreneur, and most importantly, she speaks human. She spent her career proving that you don't find culture on a data dashboard. You find it in the gaps, subcultures, and the communities that the algorithms haven't found yet. Today, we're diving into Leila's journey as a founder. We'll look at the culture stack and what that means, why relevance is a more important metric than reach, and how to build a brand that actually moves the needle without losing its soul. Leila, hello.
Not bad, actually.
Welcome
Thanks,
to the Founder's
Josh.
Arms.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you like my little
Yeah,
blurb there about
not
you?
bad,
How does
not
that feel
bad.
listening to that back about your kind of
Weird, actually, because
celeb vibes?
Well, I don't know if it's celeb vibes, but as someone who's been around for a long time, even when writing the book that we'll go through, I'm sure, it was a real moment to reflect on the time because if you're a grafter, you're just like in the work. You're not really thinking about the journey. So it's quite interesting when someone else says it, or even when I was writing the book and having to think about that journey. That's when I was like, oh shit. Been around a long time.
You've done a lot. Well, no, look, thank you for coming. I'm really excited about this episode.
Yeah.
You've been a bit of a mentor to me over the years. So thank you for that. And this podcast kind of dives into the sort of realities of being a founder. And, there's so much we're going to unpack with kind of your career. But I think the thing for me that really stands out is the fact that you founded a business early on, you started that, and then you left that and worked at huge brands like Adidas and Diageo, bucket list brands for many people in their careers. And then you left them again. You kind of went,
came back.
You found a world, which you, as we know, is a really kind of strange beast in terms of even the mundanity of payments and how you pay yourself and all that sort of stuff, to then the salaried kind of, employee world. And then you went back and you now kind of run your second business you founded technically.
Yeah.
And you found time to write a book as well, which,
that was hard. It's a lot.
Amazing.
But it's kind of, it's interesting because even before my first company Spin, I did work at Tony & Guy Hairdressing.
Okay.
And so they were not a corporate brand, but a big company.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd actually ever worked.
Okay.
And I arrived from South Africa and I got my job within the first week, and I arrived with no contacts and no money. Literally,
Okay.
I think I had £200.
Yeah.
Stayed in a hostel, in a dormitory. and didn't know anybody. But I did know that I wanted to be in London.
Yeah.
And at the time, I guess when you're, 22, you're kind of a bit cocky and invincible, right?
Yeah.
You're like, of course. I mean, I had no idea what I wanted to do as a career. I had no idea what I wanted to do for a job. I didn't come to London for the job. I came to London for the rave, actually.
Okay.
That was it.
So that's what brought you.
That's what
here.
brought me,
Okay.
because it was the 90s. And so for me, coming from South Africa and seeing a place where people really, really mixed and almost embraced the outcasts, I kind of loved that about London and England. They were and are the sort of like pioneers of things like punk, which for me is a bit two fingers up to the establishment.
Yeah.
And I love that attitude. I think I probably get that from growing up in apartheid South Africa.
Okay.
And finding a space where that was embraced. And so for me, rave culture was that, and jungle music was definitely that.
Okay.
So that's why I came, to be part of that.
Amazing.
And but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was like, oh, I'll just work wherever. And then in the first week I was here, I went to the King's Road because that's where Vivienne Westwood had a shop.
Okay. Yeah.
Before, obviously, not in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then I walked past this hairdressing salon and the phone was ringing. And I walked back and forth and the phone was ringing. And I walked into the salon and I was like, your phone's been ringing. You must be losing business. And I was talking to Anthony Mascolo, who's the founder of Tony & Guy. I had no idea what Tony & Guy was. For me, it was a hairdressing salon because I had a shaved head. It was the 90s. And
Caveat, it was the 90s.
It was the 90s. You have to have context.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, great. I can get my head shaved for free. Cool. If I work at a hairdressing salon.
The perks.
The perks.
Making the business work for you.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And then also, could meet some new people. Hairdressers are always kind of cool. So, and at the time, I didn't know that Tony & Guy was like the height of, everything when it came to hair at the time. So I was, I guess, fell on my feet a little bit. Then started as a receptionist. And after a year at the new Tony & Guy hairdressing school, I was like, you're wasting me on reception, really. How cocky am I, right? No experience.
All that youthful kind of like confidence.
Youthful confidence. I'm like, you're wasting me here. And I had a second job at Ticketmaster because it was a receptionist job.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you do upstairs? And Anthony and the PR area was upstairs and they did all the sort of photography and show planning and everything up there. And I was like, what do you guys do up there? I want to be in there. And he was great. He was like, well, just come and be a runner and have a look and see. So I learned everything literally from pre-internet. So cutting up transparencies and sending it out, faxing and posting. And so that was where it all started. And then after 5 years, I was like, either I'm going to have to marry into the family because it's a family-run business, which I wasn't going to do, even though I adored them. I also wanted to be more on the fashion side. At the same time that was happening, the internet arrived. And I was like, this is something. Yeah. This is something. And so the perfect storm. And
Conditions
I was like,
were right to be able to start
to do something different. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to create the first online marketing company for the fashion industry. And that was called Generation Net.
Okay.
So that's actually somewhere in company's house.
Okay, right. So that was the first business, not Spin.
Yeah, but Spin evolved from there.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so yes, it's this third business, Platform 13, but Spin and GenerationNet.com. For me,
straight away, that says to me that you had this kind of thing in the back of your mind where you're like, I'm going to, even the fact that you were saying, oh, you're wasting me down here.
Yeah.
Take me upstairs and let me kind of
opportunistic.
You have something. Yeah, you like, I can do this and I want to do this. And is that a creativity thing? Is that a desire to create or to do, or is it a kind of more of an entrepreneurial sort of business kind of?
I think it's a bit of both, actually. It's strange because even when I was at Tony & Guy, I was like, we getting all the credits in the magazines and the beauty pages. I'm like, but we can be in the fashion pages. You know what I mean? So while I was there, I started an in-house agency called Mascolo In-House. Mescola's the surname of the founders of Tony and Guy.
You just starting businesses everywhere.
I know. I was like, so I did this in-house bookings
As you did,
agency
yeah.
for the art team, who were all based at the school, and we were, I had their like a model agency. I had, their books. I created their portfolios. I went out to the magazines. I kind of like booked them out to do hair on photo shoots and all this kind of thing, and it was really fun. So I think I'm entrepreneurial by nature because I'm where I'm from. So I'm from South Africa. We have to innovate because if you're marginalized, you have to innovate, right?
Sure.
That's just where it is. So we all grow up with that, like, okay, we want to do this. How are we going to do it? Okay, we're going to do it like this without necessarily having any resources to be able to do things. So I guess entrepreneurial and opportunistic, that's one of the skills, I think. And I think that is just something that I kind of found. I can always see where gaps are and opportunities.
I was going to say that that kind of ability to spot gaps and kind of go, okay, well, you don't have everything figured out, but you're going to try and move into that. So you did that at Tony and Guy, you did that with your next venture. And
then I was like, the internet, okay, what can I do with that? I didn't feel like I could do it with Tony and Guy. And so I did it on my own. So for me, it's an entrepreneurial way of thinking, I guess, and opportunistic, whether I'm in a company on my own.
Yeah.
I guess.
There's a desire to do, isn't there? And to kind of do stuff and how you badge it is kind of.
And where I do
depends on the context.
Exactly.
Right?
It's the context. Yeah, that's it.
So that happened. Talk to me about Spin. So that's it's going nicely up until this point,
exactly.
Right? And then that's where it kind of the first taste of running something.
It did. So generationnet.com was great, and it was so new. I mean, we're talking no industry. We're talking no case studies. We're talking no one knowing anything about this. I'm interested in communication. I'm interested in why people do things. And so also I have that curiosity about behaviors.
Yeah.
So all of these things come together and create something. So my first client for Generation Net was a company called Scene. I don't know if you remember. I mean, I don't know. You're not that old, but back in the day, there was a magazine called Scene Magazine. Yeah.
Sorry,
There's a magazine called Scene Magazine, which was a little bit like early days. And they wanted to go online. And so we worked together to try and figure the thing out. It never got there, but the learnings we took from trying to, convert a print magazine into this completely new medium was incredible. I'm like an ongoing, lifelong learner, right, about stuff.
I mean, that's so interesting because I think back in my early days when I worked at Good Housekeeping magazine.
Oh, right. Oh, Good Housekeeping magazine, nice.
I was tasked with kind of helping develop the website because all the mags were run by her, so they all run a little bit differently. Yeah. And some had acquired kind of pure play sites and some hadn't ever. They just had the mag as like the flagship thing, right? And GH was always that. And I was the youngest guy on the team. The digital sales exec who'd just come from classified sales, has been in the industry for like a year.
Yeah, right.
And they were like, can you go and do the website? Can you do the website? Because basically they didn't get it. And I think back to that time, and again, this might be a little bit beyond kind of when you started that kind of journey with Spin and Generation Net, but I do remember it was very much like, we don't really know what this thing is.
Yes.
Can you try and figure it out? But no one seemed to have a kind of handle on it.
No. And that kind of environment also really excites me.
Yeah.
I love that. I love figuring it out. You know what I mean? And I love the journey of it. So the second client I got was acupuncture footwear. Now, again, if you know that time, the 90s and early 2000s, it was such a cult sneaker, had a big anarchy sign on it. So for me, I was like, hooray, this is why I came, remember, punk, all this kind of thing. And, they were guerrilla marketers. And I learned a lot from them. So initially I was brought on to work on their website. And I knew Vice magazine from back in the day. So I was like, oh, maybe we can send them shoes and they can give us an article for the website, like this kind of very early things, right? After a couple of years, actually, acupuncture were like, why don't you work with us also on our traditional stuff. Because remember, I had traditional communications experience from Tony and Guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, you know what? Here is another opportunity to integrate these two things. Because I was like, how, today in brands, they need to be both online and offline. And that's where Spin came out of. Because I was like, how do I create a new world agency that integrates digital, traditional, online, social, very early social as well? I was probably more ahead of anyone else just because of the early experience. And so Spin was born out of Generation Net, which was amazing. And we had fantastic clients and we had brands that, really wanted to find this new way of communicating, had no idea. And we were right there, right in the beginning doing it. So that was a 10-year business.
Wow.
Very, very early on. And I think people they always think I come from in-house. I actually come from this part and went in-house.
Yeah. You earned the right to go in-house maybe from that period.
Well, I was headhunted.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that was even more interesting after 10 years of Spin. And Spin was really fun because it was proper guerrilla marketing. This is early. How do we do collaborations? How do we do what we did call flash stores, which you call pop-ups now, I guess. How do you do, while posting, fly posting? That was our world. The streets were our world to play in, and we were learning and building that way. Early collaborations. So it was really fun. It was a lot less health and safety orientation at the time.
I mean, it's still that way now.
I'm sure for you, you're like,
depends who you ask.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we do everything by the book.
Yeah, of course. But, at the time, it was a really experimental time. And it was amazing to be there at that time with this mindset of like rave culture. So don't forget that all of that's kind of imbued at the same time in the late 90s and early 2000s, and the internet arrived. So it was a really exciting time. Exploded. So we learned a lot. We explored a lot. We experimented a lot. We had huge successes. And it was really fun to do. And then in 2008, the credit crunch happened. And I was exhausted.
Right.
That was almost 9 years or 8 years into Spin.
Okay.
And it was exhausting and tiring. And this is another founder story. I was a single founder, I had no investors and no partners. I'd winged it, up until that point, because there was no case studies. Yeah. There was no how template to run a business, especially in a new world, how to, and I'd never had experience of how to get clients or any, so I just winged the whole thing and it was incredible. But I was exhausted and closed the company off my own back because I was just like, I wonder what's next for me. And this was 10 years in.
Did that feel like quite a natural, obviously the crash being kind of as terrible as it was that quite a fortuitous or a kind of natural
catalyst
contextual
for me?
Stop point to go, right, let's just pause. Like COVID maybe kind of 10 years later.
For some people, but I think for me what happened with the crash wasn't closing the business. Actually, that was only 8 years into the 10 years. What I did then was go, you know what? Something new is coming. The traditional ways that were then more traditional by then, because we'd pioneered it 8 years ago, was becoming much more normalized. And for me, at the time, there were very few content creation companies.
Okay.
So I went to Asia to get inspired around the credit crunch time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to leave the business in my second command. I just need some time out. Went to Asia, China, Hong Kong, Thailand. I just needed time out. But of course, being someone who enjoys my work and curious, I did reports for WGSN on like what was cool in all these places and wrote for magazines, So, and that was also interesting because I could really get under the skin of cultures, music, fashion, art in those places.
As new environments, new context, and that gives a new kind of
and new inspiration.
Right?
Yeah. And content creation was starting to really bubble.
Yeah.
So I shifted and again changed Spin publicity to Spin agency. And we moved back from PR and we removed that because suddenly the content creation started becoming much more important and that became an offer. So I did that for 2 years after the credit crunch. And then after that, I was like, I'm tired.
Is that just to reflect on that quickly?
Yes.
Is that do you think a business that you run yourself has a shelf life? Is that it feels almost like quite a natural?
Yeah.
I think it was Gary Vee. Of course, it was.
Yeah.
It was like anyone in this room who's run a business, raise your hand, and he's like, I've got so much admiration for you. Keep your hands up if you run this business for 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's like that is the hardest thing to do.
It is.
Because it just we all kind of have the stories and the highlights reels on Instagram and LinkedIn LinkedIn stories. And when I started Lawless, day one, everyone was going, congratulations. And I was like, why are you congratulating me? I've not done anything.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of, it's the mundanity. It's boring, really, running a business, because there's so much rejection. There's so much kind of, it grinds on you so much. And I completely understand, when we joined Freud's, there was an element of kind of being safeguarded by pay and salary and having a bit of a cushion. So I get it. Do you think that 10 years feels like a kind of natural time?
I think for me it does. I think it might be different for different people, and people go into businesses for different reasons, I guess.
Sure.
Some, and now these days it's almost like people start a business with an exit strategy, which is interesting for me, because I was like, that's never been the thought for me personally. I mean, you know what I mean?
I'm so glad you said that, because that's one of the reasons I started this
podcast,
because I got 2 or 3 years in, and then people were talking to me about exit
strategy,
and funding and seed investment. And I'm like, I just thought I could do kind of what I was doing in the previous 10 years throughout my career for myself, kind of freelance and sort of putting a wrapper around it, which was Lawless. I didn't know that world existed. I didn't know how to fundraise, and kind of that. It's so interesting understanding kind of different ways that people have dropped into kind of running their own business and having a kind of, I'm not a very long-term view person. I sort of just go along and wing it. But it's so interesting that people have that now. And
they do.
And look forward.
And kind of. From the beginning, though, which is different for me. For me, it just felt like I always want to have a valuable role in my industry. And if I feel like people are starting to do what I do, then it's not so valuable anymore. And so for me, I need to feel inspired, and I'm a curious person. So I wouldn't want to keep doing the mundane thing. And it's not even the mundane thing, because that's just part of the day to day. But just if I feel like other people are doing something that I've been doing, then I need to be pushing the thing forward and seeing what's coming in and what's new. And that's the thing that I call it quite intangible. My mum said I've always been able to do it, right? I've always been able to go understand what's resonating.
Yeah.
And so I could see that traditional PR was going out the water. I still get surprised today when I see PR companies. I'm like, is that still how you do that?
Is that still a thing?
Is that still a thing? Because there's so many different channels, so
of course
I saw that for me coming in, and that's why I created the content agency. But remember that I had that storytelling expertise. So everything for me builds on top of each other.
Yeah.
It isn't like, here's the stop, here's the other thing. The next step for me was going, how do I bring that experience into a big corporate brand?
Okay.
But I also knew, because we were pretty successful, that no one was going to offer me the job. And also, I didn't want to secretly be looking for something else while my team was still in place. I'm quite transparent like that. So I was like, I'm going to close the company. Because, I was hoping that someone would go, there's a job for you here. And they did. But I'd never worked in a big corporate company. And I really felt like it would be interesting to see what this weird experience that I have sat within a big corporate company could do. And it was Adidas who
not
called.
Bad.
Who called.
I mean,
not bad. But it's because
I feel like most founders, or not most, but I worry that one day if the chips aren't falling with Lawless, I need to go and find a job, and it's just like, I worry that sometimes I've become unemployable.
Absolutely.
And I think founders maybe feel like that sometimes, because you have and it maybe calls to kind of what you were doing at Spin, and even before, like you become a kind of amazing sort of generalist at loads of different things, but you're not the sort of specialist at something. And that's what a lot of employment roles and jobs are. There's people that are specialists in certain things, right? But as a founder, you start to then have to do everything. But I kind of worry sometimes that I've got to the point where I'm kind of great at all these things, but not, you can't fit me into something.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel like, at least for me, I've always been at the helm of the work. I feel like sometimes, and I'm not anyone, founders can not be doing the work. I actually do the work. So I think maybe that's the differentiator for me. So when we do any work, it's I'm doing the creative direction. I'm doing the production. I'm part of that. And I don't go, okay, thank you for the work. Here, I'm going to give it to my team. That doesn't work for me.
That's a very kind of interesting sort of piece around our industry and the kind of sub part of our industry, in that it's quite hard maybe to build systems around founder-led businesses that are kind of culturally sort of tapped in and tuned in, because a lot of it is led by the founder and the founder's sort of vision. It's almost like a creative, we're not quite creative directors, right? But it's kind of like having that, you have a really authoritative and strong point of view on culture, on strategy and on insight. So a client presumably buying into Platform 13 and indeed all of you at the businesses before that are buying into you and will want to see you on the work. And it's quite hard to make a system where you replicate you even amongst that. Right?
Absolutely. And I think that has been probably the biggest struggle for what I do. I think if you're in a more functional, if I want to call it that, or very, very specific bucket, if you're a social agency or an influencer agency or creative agency, that's an executional output. And a founder can actually have a team of people doing that. But if the intel and the way of doing and the sort of connections are from culturally, which is my area of expertise, then it is hard to systemize it, because it's nuanced and it's contextual and it's relationships and it's all these things, you know? So it is difficult. And the reason why I'm talking about that is because, as you were saying, if people are nervous about feeling like generalists, because I'm a practitioner, I know my work. So I can go into a big business, into whatever role, because I've actually done the work, you know? Where I think also now sometimes founders may not have gone through, from the intern upwards and have been able to identify something that works and then build on top of that. But I think that's maybe the difference, is that I literally come from cutting up the transparency.
Doing the work wherever you work.
Literally doing the work, and I love it, and I still love it. So it was brilliant to be headhunted by that brand, because that brand for me was one that had all the elements, but I just felt wasn't like elevating into the culture at that time, which was 2012, because the competitor Nike was killing everybody. So
yeah, I repped Adidas when I was at Hypebeast years later, but same old kind of issues, they're quite cyclical and they kind of how they kind of land kind of culture and impacts. All the same stories. I can imagine kind of you were at the helm of that. So your role there was? So
I was global director of PR, marketing, PR, social and content, which was new for them, because
was it a new role?
It was a new role because I came in.
They wanted you, but they wanted to give you.
So I came in, they were looking for someone on PR. And I was like, that's great, but I can't do that without social.
Okay.
So already that was a big shift for them, because I pulled the social team into my team. The social team was sitting in the digital team. So already you can see we had already had 10 years of integrating stuff, and brands even like that still hadn't brought that as the storytelling element together.
Yeah.
So that sat within the big marketing team. And we were responsible for anything to do with the content, the activations, the talkability, and it was amazing to be able to bring that 10-year experience of spin and that early sort of like, entrepreneurial way of doing things as well into a big corporate structure. But it was a culture shock for me.
I was going to say, that was one of my questions. Like, was it a culture shock? I'm assuming, yes.
Yeah. It was a culture shock. I was just like, I walked in and I was like, wow, first of all, it's incredible to be here.
Where was your...
in Germany.
Oh,
At
you were
head
in
office.
Herzog.
Oh yeah, in Herzog.
Okay. I've been to Herzog a few times, so I've drank the Kool-Aid a bit. And it's an interesting place. It's very kind of like, well, it's a campus, isn't it? And
It's
you
a big
get there
campus.
and then you get really kind of, it feels like the Adidas hardcores.
It is.
There,
it's a bubble as well. And
Totally.
I think a lot of corporate companies are in a bubble.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to be able to see successes within that bubble. But for me, and I had this amazing remit from my boss, Alex Matt, who actually I knew when I was at Spin and he was at Levi's. And that's how I was asked to come.
Right. Got it.
So
a former client, essentially.
Yeah. And he was, he moved over and he was like, you got to come and do this job. I was like, okay, cool. But he was like, we want you to make Adidas Originals the sportswear brand of the street. I was like, cool.
Cool, but no pressure, right?
Yeah, great. But for me, I was like, yeah. And the re-release of Stan Smith, my first project, was 2 weeks in.
Wow.
So I walked into this completely new kind of environment for me. Had never been in this kind of environment with processes and systems
finance
and 2,000 people and la, 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 la. And I was just like thrown into the side room and gone, that's your first project. And I was excited because coming from sneaker culture and youth culture, I knew Stan Smith was going to be the one.
Yeah.
I knew it because it's the leveler. It was the one shoe that everyone loved no matter what your alliance was. You know what I'm trying to say? And so for me, it was perfect. But I had to, and in fact, what was really interesting about going into that space with this sort of outsider approach, I call it, is I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was like, oh, that is possible to do. You know what I mean? Whereas before everyone's like, oh, but we don't do it like that. I'm like, but you can. Why not?
I've noticed that about bigger companies and organizations, and I don't kind of have anywhere near the experience you have, but it's kind of, things are just always done how they're done.
Yeah.
And then you come in and it's almost easier maybe at the start if you've come from kind of a background of doing everything yourself.
Yeah,
because you just come with a sort of tailwind of like,
of course you can.
Well,
you can do this.
We do projects at this cadence with these people. We just get stuff done. And then you kind of, you do it with such authority and confidence that no one kind of questions it, I guess.
I mean, it was... I think people were surprised because I was like,
did you ruffle feathers in the first?
I mean, I am a certain way, and it's hard being sort of like someone who's created your own business and I've had to be,
now, right?
But it was hard for me to code switch into an employee from being the boss and making the decisions. Suddenly I had to sort of like have someone approve something, you know what I mean? And that was also a weird sort of moment for me because I had to go from making the decisions to selling in my ideas.
Yeah.
And someone else being able to say no. And I was like, really? Like that was hard for me, you know? But so I think I ruffled feathers not because I meant to, just because I came in with a really different perspective.
Yeah.
And a bit of an attitude, I'm sure, because I think you've got to have a certain way to start a business and to run a business and and I'm also South African, so I'm super direct.
Yeah.
And probably really loud. Definitely really loud. But it's also who I am, I guess. So it was good and it was great. It was positive and it was negative, both of these things, because you almost need that attitude to be able to get things over the line.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to learn how to positively impact people, which is something that I had to learn on the journey. It wasn't something that I came in with and was able to easily navigate in this very, very new environment for me. So that was hard.
Of course.
But we did some great projects at Adidas.
Well, it sounds like you were almost given a kind of golden project first off. So is that a bit of muscle memory? Because presumably Spin is kind of project led a lot of the time, and you're working with clients, so you kind of just translate that into a world where this is going to be a similar sort of thing, project and project.
Yeah.
And
so
you were given something almost straight away about the Stan Smith.
Exactly. But I don't think they understood that it was a golden egg.
Right.
That was interesting, but that's
You
because
saw that straight away. You were
straight away.
like,
I was
amazing.
like, it's Stan Smith.
Yeah.
And I understood what it could be and what the value was. And I guess that was interesting because you come from not in the bubble. So you see things just from an outsider lens. But I think it was also interesting because if you're headhunted somewhere, you almost, and that's what I said, I was like, if you want me to do the work that you've brought me in to do, we're going to have to change some of the systems that you have internally for me to be able to do that. I think it'd be harder if you applied and just went in a traditional way. So I was really lucky to already have been brought in for that differentiation. You know what I'm trying to say?
I feel like you, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like surely a brand knows that that's coming. If they bring someone in,
they do.
With a kind of certain point of view and a kind of creative and cultural lens, and wants to be a bit disruptive, someone who's run their own business, surely you kind of know that you don't want them to come in, sit in a chair and sort of not really do much and keep your head down and earn a paycheck, right? You want them to come in and sort of, it might be a bit uncomfortable, but
and that's exactly what happened.
Tear some stuff up, move some stuff around.
And that's exactly what happened. And I think that's all fine for the person bringing you in, but you still have to deal with the people who have been doing it like that for a while. You know what I mean? And so those kind of interpersonal relationships were new for me. And for me to also go, well, we're going to try it like that was a thing. So actually, Stan Smith, every part of the re-release of Stan Smith was really new for the company.
Okay.
Everything from, the initial idea of actually just getting the shoes without the tongue of Stan Smith so we could recreate 100 people's faces who love Stan Smith in the style of Stan Smith. So just getting the shoe without the tongue was like, what? And I was like, that's fine. And also me not working with their rostered agencies. So one of the things that I felt quite strongly and still feel quite strongly about big corporate brands is that they have quite traditional agencies, which is fine. But for the work that I do, it's the network of cultural voices and, young talent that are not in these spaces that I work with. So I had to almost find ways to work with my own network and almost bring that spin way of doing things into a big corporate structure. And that was not easy to do, but I actually had great support because I was headhunted in. So all these different sort of elements work together for it to make sense.
Well, I mean, procurement is a different beast, right?
It is.
I mean,
It is.
fair play that you had, or that you at least pushed for that freedom. I think that's definitely something that chimes with me with with Lawless and everything we've built. It's kind of communities and subcultures and creatives who need paying kind of up front
immediately.
And people, and even just getting that over the line with, and not just creatives but photographers, even the kind of scissor lift companies and the tradies and all the sort of little network of people that make kind of things happen in real life.
They can't survive on a 90-day payment. It's not fair on them.
It's water and oil, isn't it, a little bit? And it's kind of really trying to they sometimes, for me at least, I don't know about you, but those battles felt like the hardest, because it's kind of, it felt to me, or it feels to me, that hey, we're paying creatives and artists and talent to do things for your brand or for your campaign. This should be stuff we're bending over backwards to doing, but it almost felt like you're pushing shit uphill. It's kind of like, well, why is this so difficult just to get people paid?
And this is really, really, really huge. The payment of freelancers and younger talent and people who are not within the agencies was the thing that was the first thing I had to solve. And we did. I also changed the team. So I had an inherited team. I brought people in. Felix, who was the editor of Hypebeast, he came in. Sam Blenkinsop was from Trippin. He was an intern. So brought sort of some people in with, the right knowledge of the audience, what we were trying to do. Bernie, who's from Dead Hype in Berlin, he was also an intern. So it was amazing time to be able to restructure, reshape, and be part of that change of this incredibly this incredible legacy brand that just wasn't getting the love that it needed to get. It was really exciting. But it also meant like even things like, oh my God, this was so annoying. Ran around the whole of, and I was like, we're going to change all the facades of all the stores and all our partners to green and white when we launch, which you can imagine would be crazy because we had all these stores around the world. And I was like, from blue and white to green and white, we're going to change everything. You know, this is the crazy ideas that I had because I understood how to roll out a campaign in a different way. You know, we did very, very early build the desire for drop culture. All of that came from being able, as I said, to understand how the audiences want to receive information, which is not the way that traditional brands work, even today. So that ability to understand what resonates, it's whether it's product, business, communications, technology, that's just the skill set that I've kind of built everything around a little bit. And then, you know, from that Stan Smith release, I mean, it was so big for the company, huge for me, and validating, I guess, for this completely different way of doing things. And I think, you know, it was part of the change of how that company did marketing. And I'm really proud of that. I'm really, really proud of that, actually. And today, you know, it's doing really, really well. But, you know, at the time it was really new.
Adidas, never heard of them.
I'd never heard of them. But also, you know, there were things that I knew coming from Spin. So I knew the Highsnobiety guys really, really well because I knew them when they were a blog.
Yeah.
You know, and I just remember us just never being in those spaces, in those places, Hypebeast. And like we weren't covered as well as anyone else. And so I think the year after or just the year before I left, Highsnobiety did their first sort of awards, and Adidas Originals came second as the most relevant brand, which for me was amazing because that was the work we did after Stan Smith. It was the first Palace collaboration, you know, all this kind of stuff. For the next 2 years that I was there, we had these incredible projects. So it was fun times. It was fun times. But it's also because the brand was open to it. You know, the business was open to new ways of doing things. And yeah, so it was really, really fun.
So you brought your startup
mentality
into global behemoth giant.
Giant. And that's
and succeeded from day one almost with that kind of project.
That project was a godsend. And even now, like when I speak to corporate businesses, I'm like, it is possible. It's possible. And that's not theoretical. You know what I mean? But the business needs to want to do it.
Yeah.
Needs to want to do it. So, and then I went to an even more traditional industry.
Yeah. So how long were you at Adidas?
So
you Spin, then was it 2 years at Adidas?
2 years at Adidas. Yeah. And then our son, turned 5. So we went to Germany when he was 2.
Okay.
He turned 5 and we were like, my husband and I, Luke, we were like, do we stay and learn German so we can support him at school?
Yeah.
Or do we head back? Do we want, where do we want his education to be? And we were like, we definitely want to go back to London. You know, Germany was never going to be, it was never the forever place for us.
Yeah.
Is
that do many people with Adidas do that? Is it a case of, I guess if you're from London or kind of not Germany, right?
Yeah.
It's very much maybe a temporary thing.
But it's also like we're big city people.
Yeah.
You know, and so we're always going to be big city people.
So is it the nightclub in the airport?
Something.
There's a nightclub in the airport.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that with Brendan, our creative director at Hypebeast at the time. I was like, what is this place?
Yeah.
And Chanel was like, yeah, there's a club in the airport. This is mad. But that flight, you can always see the people that are clearly kind of the big city goers.
Big city
who are
people.
sort of coming in and out of that place for the Adidas connection.
But I think it depends on your character, because I think some people arrive there thinking they're not going to be there for long and then build roots and are there for like 10 years. So it depends on your thing. But so
your
for us,
circumstance was different.
Exactly.
You came back to London.
And I was just like, I resigned from Adidas actually.
Oh, okay.
And because we'd made this decision. And then I got this amazing call going, we're looking for someone at Diageo. We don't know what you do, but we think we need it. I'm like, what? I don't know anything about booze and FMCG,
Wow. Okay.
you know, because Adidas, even though it was corporate, it's still sneaker culture. You know what I mean? And it was originals as well. So it was definitely within the same world as Spin, just as a corporate brand.
Yeah.
But I knew the world really well. And I was like, first of all, I don't know anything about FMCG. Secondly, booze is polarizing. You know, I'm like, can I sell booze? Is that weird? Like, is that not good for the world?
Yeah.
And also, it's so regulated. So all different countries have different rules and
all regulations, the
regulations,
stuff.
all the things, you know? And so I'd been in fashion and youth and music and art for so long that I was like, that's such a different thing. But what they wanted me to do was bring that into their business. So Ed Pilkington, who writes the foreword in my book, he is amazing because he's Mr. Corporate guy. And he's a visionary because he was just like, my remit for them was even more exciting. He was like, I need you to disrupt my business, the industry, and the category. I was like, okay.
Again, no pressure.
No pressure. And so I created the culture and entertainment department for Diageo, which worked across their big brands. So Guinness, Baileys, Tanqueray, Johnny Walker, Smirnoff.
Yeah.
All those well-known household brands. And I think the mindset, again, that I have was actually it's booze, right? So you don't have to act like frozen peas, even though you're FMCG. How do we create a cultural, how do I embed these brands into these different cultures in a way that feels credible for them and makes sense for the brands? And so that's what we set out to do. And it was a completely new department. It wasn't just a new role. It was a completely new department that we had to create internally. And again, because I was headhunted for that role, again, having the knowledge of Adidas, now understanding how corporate works, could really ensure that we were set up to be able to do the things that they asked me to come in and do.
So you had to come in and build a team.
Create a whole new department, and that meant new processes, new ways to connect with the brands, new ways to connect with all the markets. You know, it was a lot, but it was a huge learning journey because I was also on his leadership team. And I remember going into our weekly meeting and going, I don't want to know about margins. And he's like, you need to know about margins. So I learned the business.
Yeah.
And that was invaluable. And so did some fun, cool projects there as well, which is really fun.
Were there any that kind of live up to the Stan Smith kind of?
Yeah, a few actually. We did and started the journey with Guinness and Caribbean culture. There, which continues to today.
Yeah, totally.
But at the time, it wasn't a strategy for them. So that was something that we kicked off and did huge partnership with Boiler Room at the time at Carnival, especially around the 50th birthday. And we wanted to tell big stories. So that was really massive. So I think everyone goes to the Deviation event at Powers Terrace. That was the first time they did it, was with Guinness and us back in the day. So that was goosebump moment because I'm a huge carnival. I mean, it's Carnival, right? And you're like, oh my God, it's amazing. We were off 8-ounce sound systems, and it's a really great case study, and you can search it up. Whoever can search it up. We
I'll
also
get it on
did
the screen.
get it on the screen. Like a little... I'll send you the.
I was going to say like Joe Rogan does, but yes, not the right reference point, is he?
But I get it.
But he does that thing, doesn't he? Where he's like, fine. He has someone. He has someone in there, like a producer. Going, find that. Doesn't even have to like.
Well, there's
do any posts.
Exactly.
We paid extra. I had someone
doing it.
Maybe when season 2.
Season 2, we'll do it. And then Smirnoff was another very proud moment as well because we kicked off the 2 times women's headliners. Project, which is a 3-year project, and it was quite a thing. Within Smirnoff as well, we did quite a lot of work around inclusivity. So in one other proud project was we wanted to make a statement around pride in Belfast at the time where same-sex marriages were illegal. So we did a 5-story pasting of 2 women kissing on the Pride route. But again, to be able to pull that off, I had to work very closely with the legal team and make sure that everything was able to be done with in a very responsible way, etc. So there's a few of those kind of like incredible projects that really pushed the boat forward on those brands. Another was with Bailey's. They were like, oh my God, we want to do something that's, indulgent. I'm like, it's got to be the Freak Shake. And again, that was so unusual. So lots of those kind of projects and just making sure that we had the brands in the right places. So, I mean, it's a 3-year case study of multiple projects of different things.
Yeah.
But again, that was different because with Adidas Originals, it was one brand, but actually I was working across the portfolio within a big company.
Almost in a sweet shop, right?
Almost
all these brands
crazy,
wanted
amazing brands,
access to culture, do cool shit. They're probably being told that they have to disrupt, and and you're kind of being given the keys to the kingdom and say, look,
to do it. Oh, another one that was amazing, and actually this was another big brand we worked on, was Captain Morgan.
Okay.
So we did the Wes Morgan, Captain Morgan activation when they won the premiership. And that was their most successful campaign, a social media campaign ever, basically, at the time. That, again, and all of that was done from in-house. All of that was done not using traditional agencies. All of that was done through my team that I had reworked, but also just done using my network, as always. And so, again, sort of quite early in-housing, whatever they call it now. But that was just because I'm a practitioner, and I think that was what was interesting about both of those experiences was I really understood how big brands work internally.
Okay.
Because I think if you only work in agency, you really don't understand the difference in priorities and no priorities as you work through. So then 3 years in, I was like, oh God, I just need to be doing my own thing again, but with this new knowledge.
So almost like proof of concepts, because I mean, you've gone in and set up. I mean, you've gone into a new role at Adidas.
Yeah.
So
a new department
and
at
then
Diageo.
almost kind of built, sort of brought. You mentioned kind of the interns that you sort of brought in and kind of who have all gone on to do great things, and you leveled up again to do a department sort of build. Do you think?
And in the leadership team as well, which again is another hugely different experience. So everything, as I said, everything's additive.
Yeah.
But when I was in those 2 experiences, I understood the gap between big brands and what their procured rostered agencies look like.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're missing a spin. That's what they're missing, Not that, but like an evolved version of this kind of guerrilla style, new way of doing things that comes from the culture up and not from the brand down.
Yeah.
And which is what I brought in, which is what I brought inside.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So you've set that up in Diageo. Is that a kind of team now that still exists there? And does that
still exists?
Are other businesses doing the same to kind of bring that in? Is that a common?
100%. And it was. I remember there being an article when we first launched it, going, "Do FMCG companies need culture and entertainment?" This kind of thing. So it's still there. It's different to when I was there, but the name's still there, the idea is still there. So it's good to see that has continued, because that could have easily have gone, as these things actually do quite a lot.
It sounds like it was something that was built, with you and your experience in mind. So how do you build a role and a team around one person, and that one person then leaves, which you did exactly? And how is that replicatable?
Yeah,
that's so
and it's interesting because you can see that it's not.
Yeah.
But there are other people like me. You know what I'm trying to say? It's not like I'm
You're
the only
setting
person.
a bit of a mold, right?
Yeah.
For kind of people to, I guess, perceived wisdom is to kind of move up through a company or go between different companies and get experience in an industry. But what you've shown is you've built an experience kind of portfolio and catalogue through doing your own thing, which was then at some point, when it's been going on long enough, someone's come along and gone, not Adidas, sorry, but there's someone at Diageo said that don't quite know what you do, but we
We don't know what it is.
And we don't know, there's a gap, but it's kind of that
Yeah.
sort of like,
Yeah.
seems like you do cool shit. Seems like you have a handle on how to execute and do things. We need some of that. And we don't know what that looks like here, but we're just going to bring you in and make you, give you a kind of platform to run it.
Exactly. But you do need that senior level person to be able to do that. Because I think what happens is, and I get this a lot, I get a lot of messages and a lot of emails going, please help. We don't know how to make people understand the value of cultural work or culture-led work in these big companies. And the problem is that it's a very top-down way of doing things in these kind of companies, which is different to a challenger brand, which is different to a cultural brand. Corporate brands are mandated from the top. So I was lucky in those spaces because I was brought in as a senior person.
Okay.
And so it's always harder if you're trying to do it down here and trying to prove it to the business. You know what I mean?
So you had contacts in senior positions.
Yeah.
So how does that happen?
So
is that just you said that the layering and the kind of additive nature of kind of what you do, is that just sort of a natural graduation of your career getting to a certain point?
So.
And then you kind of, the people that you're sort of, you maybe used to be clients are now in more senior positions. So you somehow then just a bit more elevated and earning trust and gaining trust.
And that's it. And also I think at the end of the day, business is business. People want to be able to sell their product, whatever it is, you know. And so if you can prove and show and evidence that that's possible to do with this new way of doing things, and that's how it needs to be done. And that's so when I was in these two spaces, I saw this gap, and that's how Platform 13 was born, because I was like, I can show that it drives business growth. I can show that it drives excitement and interest around a brand. Even if it's a brand that's been around for a long time, you can still make it relevant. And so this relevance piece, which we'll talk about, you know, in terms of metrics, is the thing that has actually always been about for me. And it's only as you go through your career and your sort of experiences, you start to sort of like nail down what is the thing that you've always done. You don't know what you're doing in the beginning a little bit. You know what I mean?
Because you're running at however many miles per hour,
you're not
and
even
you're doing
thinking
projects
about it.
and you don't ever get that. I mean, you clearly have had multiple points in your career where you've been able to have that point of reflection, but it's that looking back and gone, shit, okay, well, this is the stuff we've done.
This is the thing,
These are things we are responsible for, and this is kind of what a worldview looks like in our kind of little industry.
That's it. And, you know, things shift and things evolve, but there's generally a red thread of what you've been doing. And it feels like for me, it's connected to this thing of this intangible way of understanding what's resonating. That means it's not so hard for me to make something relevant because I understand what is needed. Yeah, I don't know, you know, and I can't even codify it. It's not even a framework. It's just how my mind thinks, I think.
Okay. So that then you don't know kind of what it is that you do all throughout your career, but it feels like you sort of start to figure that out then with Platform 13.
So with Platform 13, it really was and is a combination of all of the work. So I've got these are the three languages. I speak corporate, I speak entrepreneurial, and I speak cultural. And that comes from all the career journey, but also my personal interest of rave culture, youth culture. That's my background. You know what I mean? So that's layered on top of all this other kind of work experience and my own, you know, way of doing things coming from South Africa and being opportunistic. So all of these things, the culture stack, layers in.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Platform 13 actually is. So we can work with multiple brands. We work globally. We work multiple disciplines. And it was created to really sort of like hack the agency model, which I'd seen not work with these brands, and bring the learnings of how to build brands in a new way using new processes that I developed within these big companies, you know? So they were proof points already, and then came out and went, okay, big brands, if you need it, I know how to do it. I've done it through pain and experience and failures and successes, and I think I can work with your company to be able to bring that to you as well. And it just happened at the same time as, like when the internet came and something big was shifting, there was a shift in how people were communicating. That very early, what we used to do at Adidas, which people, I think, use the word influencer marketing incorrectly. The original influence has been sneakerheads and photographers and all, the cultural voices, I call them today. And so when I launched Platform 13, I launched with one post, and that was "Rest in peace, influencer marketing."
Okay.
Long live influence. It's the first post on my Instagram. And that, of course, because it created quite a few questions, and I had all these like magazines asking what the hell does that mean? You know what I mean? Because that was like the height of influencer marketing.
That's kind of what I wanted to touch on. Because I mean, there's so much to get into Platform 13, but just what does that look like from day one? Because you're not Leila who starts Spin.
No.
On day one of Platform 13, you presumably have a kind of much wider network, a bit more cachet and kind of clout in the industry and industries you want to kind of touch on. You now know about booze, you now know way more about sneakers and kind of all that stuff. So is that daunting? Does that, I mean, you've had pressure from being brought into Adidas and do this with this big elevated role and do this in Diageo and build a department. So clearly pressure doesn't really kind of get you as much, but that feels quite big. Like, right, I'm going to back myself. I'm going to go and do this again.
But it was almost more natural place for me to be.
Okay.
For me, it felt like coming home.
Yeah.
Actually, those other spaces felt more pressure, more difficult for me than, because, I started Spin literally in my lounge with a computer and a big mouth, basically. And I've always been quite, I'm quite clear that if things don't work out, I just pick myself up and carry on. That is something that comes from where I'm from. You're resilient.
Yeah.
And you have to be. So that's never been a concern for me in terms of like, oh, I'm really scared in case it fails. I never think like that.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking, well, if it's not working, I'm just going to pivot and shift it and move it.
Yeah, I think founders need a certain kind of type of delusion.
Yeah.
You almost need to be delusional to the point like this is
going to be fine.
The same with Lawless.
Yeah.
And it's kind of deep down, that it might not be.
Yeah.
But you kind of, I think the it is almost delusion, isn't it? It's kind of like, I know this is going to work.
Yeah.
And
you have to have some belief
as well.
in it.
If you had 0 projects to your name, 10 years worked, and you've never actually gotten anything over the line, then it's
tough.
real
That's
delusion
tough.
maybe, and it's probably not the right thing. But we weather the storm, and things are cyclical and seasonal, and kind of you need to just, I completely get it, because I'm in a sort of similar boat with Lawless in terms of figuring out the next steps, and it's just like, I know there's a need for it.
Of course.
I know that I can do it.
Yeah, of
so
course.
It feels like you maybe had that at the start of Platform 13.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And again, as you're saying, I was lucky because I had these huge projects at the back of me, and they changed businesses, but they were also written about. And so I could position myself differently to Spin, where with Spin we were just going,
Who are you?
What is happening? Okay, how do I work with these brands that I love? And it was different. And so the additiveness of it made it feel less daunting, because I actually had evidence and I had a body of work that felt powerful and strong, which was great for me. So I was able to position it well right off the start, and felt like I could say that quite challenging thing to an industry that was investing so much into influencer marketing, because I had the proof points of how to do it properly. And with big companies, they do jump onto words, but they use the traditional methods to do the thing. So it wasn't about not influencer marketing. It was just, don't do endorsements and call it influencer marketing, or don't. It's different. There are people with influence.
Okay.
And those are the people who shift cultures forward.
So that was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah.
Did you launch with a strategy? But it seems like your strategy when you launched was not picking a fight with influencer marketing, but you had a kind of
I had something to
solid point
talk
of
about.
view.
Yeah, a
You
point
had
of
a
view.
kind of direction
Yeah.
of travel,
Yeah.
and that was going to be your sort of North Star in the beginning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was strategic as well, because I knew I would be getting people going, what do you mean? Come and talk about it.
Yeah.
Come and talk about it
Bit
on
of
this keynote.
dissonance,
Yeah.
a bit of
Come and
spikiness.
be on a panel and tell us la la la. You know, so I'm a communicator, right? At the end of the day. So I was like, how do I?
Like one of our things is working with artists is your marketing cheat code.
Yeah,
and the
sure.
amount of people that have come to me internally at Freud's and even just wider and say, "Oh, I hate that phrase. I hate that phrase."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't deep it. It's like I don't think for a minute that working with artists is your marketing cheat code. I think it's a kind of a good, it's a bit grubby because it then links artists to marketing and it's kind of, a bit transactional. And I can talk about that to kind of the cows come home, but it's an icebreaker. It's a spikiness to it that sort of, it's that first line of LinkedIn. Yeah. It's the kind of hook.
Sure.
So I guess you're sort of saying that when you start a business, or at least with Platform 13, you started with a more of a hook in mind.
I did. And that was different to Spin, you know what I mean? Because I also understood that in order for me not to get clients and to get the right clients, I wasn't also looking for, just any clients. I've never wanted to have a company that was just a factory of work. Every single project that we've worked on has been because we wanted to work on it. And that's why I set up Platform 13 as not an agency. I call it a non-agency, strategically call it a company. I've never called it an agency. It's not an agency. It's a platform. So these were all new words and concepts in our industry. Maybe is more normalized now, but at the time it was really, really, really new. And I wanted it to be like that because it gave me talking points. And so I've been really lucky that we don't really pitch for work.
Okay.
And that was something that I also didn't want to do because that's an agency way of doing things. So I'm like, what are the pain points around? And I saw it in-house. I saw it firsthand, the pain points between brand and agency. And I was like, all of those pain points, that's not what you're going to get here. So I had to position myself and Platform 13 really in the vision of what I thought it needed to be and should be. A bit like what you're saying. I know there's a need for it. People don't really understand it, but you've got to be able to then translate what they want in this new way and the other way too. And that's the translation service. That's the language ability. So that's, as I said, everything's been additive towards it. And actually it's worked out really well because we launched in 2017. Colin Kaepernick did his big thing in 2016.
Yeah.
So things were moving. Things were shifting and changing. And then 2020 happened and we grew. Because we were already set up to work. Platform 13 was set up to curate project teams depending on the project and not have a full-time, always on big staff, which I had at Spin. So even for me, I was like, what do I not want to do that I did at Spin? I'm going to put it into Platform 13. So already we were set up to be able to work anywhere in the world, remotely, curating teams. And that is from inception. But that's what I also did in-house. So everything's been additive. We worked in new ways of transparent budgeting. We worked with all these this network that I've built through Spin, Adidas, Diageo, all my network. And so able to access any country in the world, any city in the world, any culture in the world with the people who are shaping it. That's the network. So bringing all these different things in and going, what is a new way of doing things? Okay, we're going to try this. And that's how Platform 13 was born. And 2020 happened and we were already set up to work remotely. We didn't even skip a beat. No one was, we didn't lose anything. And then BLM happened. And that, again, we were already set up because we've already been doing work with talent, no matter where it came from, marginalized, all this kind of stuff. So that was already embedded because I'm from apartheid South Africa, and that's always been embedded in everything that I do. So it didn't feel like, oh, we're going to now do these things. No, we've
it's
just always done it.
It's
No,
like,
no,
part of
it's
DNA.
just part of how it is.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, I guess, about understanding what's resonating and being able to adapt, flex, pivot. In today's world, companies need to be able to do that, and brands need to be able to do that. And so that's where we are, I think.
So you've gone from a kind of sort of entity that's been winging it a little bit, figuring it out, and kind of just moving at the speed of culture and kind of the drumbeat of culture, to then doing it in businesses and taking that template to then all of a sudden now you're a kind of trusted partner to be able to kind of react to things that, the world throws at us, which seemed in sort of even 2016, was it, when Brexit happened, I think, and Trump kind of, that's when the world sort of
started
fell a bit weird and kind of
feel a bit weird.
Something happened in the middle of it, and everything started to move around, and ever since it's been kind of thing after thing.
It has. And now that's the norm. It really, really is. The only thing we're certain of is how uncertain it is. And businesses and brands set up in the 20th century didn't have that uncertainty. It was a much more stable place. And you had spikes like the 2018 crash, right? Credit crunch. But nothing like we see now in what I call Q2 of the 21st century from this year is quite a thing. And actually, really, the book was written and came out last year when, Trump went into power. So it's a real snapshot of this time, this hugely transformational time and transitional time, which that wasn't strategic. It just happened to be that I was asked to write this book. And first I was like, I'm not a writer. Like, I'm a practitioner, but, and they wanted me to talk about cultural marketing. And I was like, it's not really called cultural marketing. You've got to be a culture-led brand, of which marketing and innovation and design
kind of show up to the screen. Great read. I was one of the first to buy it when I saw it come out. Obviously, we've kept in touch over the years, and I saw it come, and I was like, right, I'm going to be one of the first to.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you even find time to? Run a business and write a book? It's hard for me to even read a book.
I tell you,
I was trying to read some last night, and I was like, Jesus Christ! It's not that it's not the content. It's I think. It's hard to read nowadays. It's like with the way that you scroll, it's kind of like you read something. And I had Barack Obama's audiobook a few years ago, and that was a fucking nightmare because he's got such a deep timbre to his voice. He speaks so, like, his voice is so soothing
that you just like.
I fell asleep every single night. I'd fall asleep, and I'd be like 20 chapters on, and I'd be like, where did I stop? I was trying to
stop concentrating and pass out.
Business idea for anyone: find out when you fall asleep in an audiobook, so it stops it.
Well, that's a good one to have to think about. So
there we are, Dragon's Den. So culture-led brand. So we I mean, I feel like we haven't spent anywhere near enough time on Platform 13, but we're kind of the essence of you and your vision is kind of being woven into this whole sort of chat. But I really wanted to spend a bit of time talking about this book in particular because it feels like an essence of kind of what your worldview on how to land a brand with in culture credibly and kind of, I guess, sort of strategic kind of viewpoints on how to kind of chart this this kind of wavy sort of time we're in.
It is it's the time and the context, because culture is contextual and it's really, really nuanced. And I think people who think culture marketing and they it's fashion, music, art. It is, but culture is about people, right? And so people are affected by the politics and technology of the time and the media. And I don't think brands give enough thought to the impact of these things on people and their culture stacks, which I introduced in the book. And this was really a way to articulate that 30-year career. And it really made me stop. So I was doing huge projects at the time and I was exhausted, my poor husband and child, honestly, because I was like on holiday, I was writing. evenings I was writing, weekends I was writing. We had to like leave places early because I had to get back and finish the thing. And then, you know, something crazy happened in the world and I had to like re-look at everything in the book and go,
okay.
is this because culture is nuanced and moving all
Yeah.
the time. So at some point I actually said to my publisher, I was like, I don't know if I'll ever finish it because every time something happens in politics or anything, I have to like rewrite the book. And she just said, just from the beginning, go, it's a snapshot.
Yeah.
Just go, this was written in 2024, you know, and this is what's happening. And I have to give myself almost this is as far as we can go because it changes all the time. That's the whole point. And so I think when brands, one of the biggest things they miss is that it's constantly evolving and changing and you have to be able to adapt accordingly. Whereas brands work so far in advance and then they have the same plan 18. I'm like, things change by the minute. So when you're doing that,
I was shocked you were able to even do anything at Adidas because don't they do shoe launches like 24 months or 18 months in advance? So
yeah. And
I understand the kind of the mountains you maybe had to move to get the tongue kind of things over the line. Right?
And there was ZX Flux, which was another one there. I mean, this was so funny. They dropped the picture, the render on my desk in October to launch it in January. That was a really fast turnaround for them as well from product, right?
Yeah.
Because the reason why I think it took a while is because Originals at the time was very much about archive product. So they had to make sure that it was honored and true, blah, and these things. But this shoe came in as an innovation product. And we had to create an entire campaign off the render. We didn't even have a sample. Oh my goodness. Over Christmas. And
pick your moments, eh?
It was amazing and it was huge, but I was, you know, I kind of love a challenge. So I was like, oh, it's fine. We'll sort it out. We had a car designer take the picture and render it into this product. It was amazing. But anyway, so, so I think even more now, even then you could still do that. But because the communications was adaptable, which was new for them as well and different, we could use the same product, but make sure it was relevant at the time of landing, right?
Okay.
Whereas now you have to even think about the product and relevance because everything is so changeable all the time. That's another thing that Platform 13 does and has done from its inception, different to other agencies as well, because that's how culture works. That's our mindset. So we always think in what's happening out there, how things communicating, and then how do we make sure our clients are relevant in the time when it hits whatever it's hitting. So I guess Platform 13 in a way is interesting because it's more than just an executional partner. Mm-hmm. It's a strategic partner. It's one that helps a brand be relevant in the world beyond a campaign of any kind, you know?
Yeah.
But it's also hard because it's not that understood within brands and businesses.
Okay.
And that's why I have to do so many talks and so much because I'm trying to explain all the time what it is. Yeah. And actually the book has been great because it gives you one place to try and at least get an understanding of what it is. Yeah. So it was hard to write the book. Writers, props to you. Yeah. Honestly, it is
when's
hard to write a book.
Out?
Oh my God, I can't. I don't think I'll ever do another book, but I might do some updates. But people go and write and that they don't do any other work. So it was quite hard to actually run the business. Yeah. Be a mother.
Of course.
Be a wife. And
real world shit.
Write a book. But I didn't really think about it until I had it in my hand. And then I literally was like emotional. Because up until then, it was almost another project to deliver.
Yeah.
And then
there's a familiarity in how to deliver something.
I can deliver. I can deliver big projects. I can deliver difficult things. That's fine. But then when I had it in my hand, it was a real moment, a bit like your marathon story where you're just like,
writing a book, running for 4 hours, totally the same. But
no, but it's a huge accomplishment. It's accomplishment. It's accomplishment of something that was hard to do, you know? Yeah. And that's what it is. So it doesn't matter if it's a book of running.
So is there a relief then at the end that it's done and it feels something that you can now take out and tour and sort of talk about?
Yeah. And also it just it's a place because there's never enough time to really explain. So hopefully this explains the why and gives reasoning and evidence, because I'm not an academic, right? I'm not a theorist. This is from the ground up, practical, practitioner work. Whereas I think a lot of the books around marketing, even contemporary marketing, is quite like academic.
Yeah, it's almost like theory versus practical, right?
Yeah,
and you're kind of you've been doing the practical for a long time, and it's kind of almost retrofitting the theory, right?
Yeah, and trying to find ways to explain this quite hard thing to explain, which is culture, you know, because it means so many different things to different people. So I've only been able to sort of share my journey about it and the successes that I've had with, you know, incredible brands. And that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
So.
Look, there's some great kind of stories in there. There's some great kind of little box outs with people that you've met along the journey. James Kirkland, who I know from, I spoke to him when he was at Copper 90 maybe, but great people from that kind of, that world of sort of culture and brand and cool. There's a particular bit in there around the culture stack, which I find really interesting. Yeah. I'd love to hear a bit more about what that is kind of in essence, and
it's so
how you got to that point of figuring that kind of stuff out.
I think, you know what, it was so weird what happened, right? So things happen as they need to. So I was writing the book, and it was only through writing the book that I realized it was my 30-year anniversary of my career when I arrived in London. 95, and it came out in 2025. And I was like, oh, that's 30 years. Jeez.
You're
and
like,
then,
is that right?
I know. I was like, phew, that makes me really old, but that's fine. Then I was like, okay, for my 30-year anniversary, I'm going to do a bit of a like a video about it, right? And then while I was doing that and writing the script for it, I realized that there's two parts of me, as there is to everyone. It's where you're from, South Africa, apartheid, and those foundational things that you see the world through. And then there are the cultures that you choose: fashion, music, Korean food, whatever. And so you have these cultures that you don't choose, your inherited cultures. So, and there's communities within that. And then layered on top of that are other communities, but you will only ever want to engage with those communities that match your inherited culture. Okay. So making this is just one example. So rave culture for me is where everyone mixed. That was important to me because of where I'm from, where no one mixed.
Right.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah,
and everyone has that. So if you think about your background, where you come from, the things that interest you, and even within the things that interest you, what are the areas that really pull at you? It's usually through your experiences of where you come from, and that can be positive or negative too, right?
Yeah,
so,
I mean, straight away an example is I grew up in Bristol.
Yeah.
Went to a lot of skate parks.
Yeah.
Got introduced to graffiti.
Yeah.
Bristol was the home of graffiti.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time outdoors, and you'd meet other kind of waifs and strays and skateboarders, and you're then introduced to skate shops and the cool designs on the t-shirts and the communities that hang out, and then you go and meet a graffiti artist and you get a can and you spray with them and you might get arrested when you're 14 years old for spraying, and then...
But that's your choice. You're selected. But you're from Bristol. Now, that would be really different in New York. Yeah. And that would be really different in even London compared to Bristol. And so your lens is Bristolian, and that's a very, very special thing. Yeah, and it's also English versus, say, Brazilian. You know what I mean? So that inherited piece is around almost quite geographical. And the community, and that can be in the diaspora as well. So, you know, it could be that there is an Irish family living in New York, as they are. They're still Irish. You know what I'm trying to say? So that inherited piece is your foundation. Yeah. And sometimes you might not like it. Or you might not practice. So my family's Muslim. I don't practice, but but I still understand some of the things that I like about it and some of the things of why I don't practice. That doesn't mean that I have to be like, oh, that's my background and that's how it needs to be. You can also not be part of it, but it's still your foundation.
Yeah,
it's still your foundation. And you see the world through that. So for me, understanding and realizing that apartheid really made me feel a way about discrimination and diversity and raw talent. And because I had all my communities raw talent with no access.
Yeah.
So if I think about anything that I've done, bringing new people in, working with people who are not in big agencies or haven't had, that's always been the baseline. And so I was thinking about how I can make that quite visual and understand. And then I was like, it's a stack. It's a stack, like a tech stack.
Yeah.
It's like a tech stack, but it's a culture stack. And what's interesting about the culture stack is that you have this inherited cultures and all the communities.
Mm-hmm.
What stacks on top, it doesn't intersect, it stacks on top of it is your interest cultures and communities. And there's a lot of them. So it's not just music, it might be music and fashion, it's food and skateboarding, whatever. And then when you get to work in a business, the company culture is not selected for you. And interestingly, the decisions that get made there are through the culture stack of the CEOs and the decision makers. So if they are not diverse at that level and they have grown up with privilege, which we know a lot of the CEOs are quite monoculture, it's a fact, it's not being challenging. They create policies and ways of working through their culture stack. So it's a really interesting thing. How you see brands in the world is through your culture stack. If you are LGBTQIA+ as something that's not inherited, that's something that's within you, you are going to perceive a brand who is not queer friendly in a way you're not going to buy them.
Sure.
So this is what it is, and it's interesting because once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's like a weird. Everyone I've introduced to you have been like, oh my God. It's suddenly like
the unpack or the unlock.
Yeah,
like,
it's the unlock.
Shit,
you're like, oh shit, that's
sense.
how the thing works because it's all about people. It's always been about people.
Okay.
And so it kind of frustrates me when, big brands in our industry are talking about communities. And I'm like, yeah, but don't treat them like consumers. They're communities.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that I'm still trying to fight against, but it's exhausting.
So kudos for getting this far and with the book and kind of explaining that. Are you on the kind of culture stack tour? Is it kind of, are you out doing the kind of marketing for the book and for your worldview, or is it kind of a tool to?
It's a tool
to speak about kind of Platform 13 and the services, or a kind of mishmash of both.
I think because I'm not an author. Yeah, but it's weird. I say that because then my husband's like, you are an author. You have a physical book published. And I'm like, but I don't see that's not the dream. I'm a practitioner. So it's a tool for me to be able to have something for people to have a deeper dive in what I'm trying to say. That usually, if I go into a meeting, if I do a keynote, it's only like 20 minutes or it's only like, you can't get under the skin of something enough. So that's how I see it and use it. And I've been really lucky because I've had big brands buy for their teams.
Okay.
And buy bulk orders for. So that's been great because it needs to be, it's a working
document.
Tool.
Yeah,
exactly. I'd love it to be in the hands of marketing and communication students. I'd love that to be happening right now. So that would be the ideal, is that it's for practitioners, CEOs, students, to just think about a different perspective on doing things.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So it's not like I'm going, oh my God, I want to write another book. So this has to be, it's never been that for me.
You want brands to implement
use it.
the stuff from this book, right? And you want them to kind of think about the culture stuff.
Yeah. And
that sort of stuff.
Exactly, because I feel like brands have such a big responsibility and weight.
Sure.
And it can do so many things, and so can governments and so can organizations, and it impacts us all. So I just would like them to think beyond only sales to what their brands can do for the world.
There's absolutely a responsibility. I think that hugely with artists. I think the whole sort of church and state thing.
Yeah.
It used to be a period, even kind of 10 years ago, where it was kind of a bit muddy if an artist did something with a brand. But now it feels like it's so commonplace, it's so accepted. Budgets across the board are dropping from kind of local authorities and councils and governments to kind of fund the arts.
Yeah.
So brands naturally step in.
Of course.
They do it kind of freely because they know it adds in an injection of cool to their brand. They know it's going to
mm.
add something to their bottom line. But there's almost that sort of, we've seen companies like Meta and sort of huge businesses that have just kind of come out of nowhere that have huge, almost like the GDP of a bloody country. So there is a responsibility and a weight now to kind of like keep the stuff that makes us and communities. You have to keep that growing and keep inspiring the next generation by funding it and it's an investment kind of conversation, isn't it? It's,
exactly.
And people are, I think, afraid to have that sometimes and talk about kind of business and commerce and over here, but creativity, it's like, you can't really talk about money.
I think there's a way to do both of those. I think, but it's important when commerce starts that we continue to protect and gatekeep the cultures. You know what I mean? And so that is something that I've talked about forever, is mutual benefit. It can't be extractive only on one side. Like that I feel very strongly about. Coming from Africa, where our resources were plundered, I'm like, let's not extract, let's invest in these, because, for brands where they want to be is part of culture and part of fandoms, and their products are bought by people. If you're investing in the cultures that people are interested in, credibly and done with the right motivation, by the time you get to that mainstream moment, you're already part of the thing.
Yeah.
You're already part of it. It's an easier sell for you than trying to like show up in one moment where people are just like, what is this brand doing here? They're not even part of anything we're doing. That becomes extractive. And in the book, I have this thing called the cultural pipeline. And the cultural pipeline is how it's always forever worked. Where brands want to be in mainstream culture because that's where there's lots of people and big scale. But just behind mainstream culture is emerging culture. And emerging culture is where they need to invest. So by the time they get to mainstream, they're part of it. Yeah. But what they forget is that there's always a response to mainstream culture. That's subculture. And that subculture part is where brands shouldn't play a role, because that's where new, exciting things are happening. Yeah. They need to have an eye on it to be able to understand where the green shoots into emerging is, and then invest if it's right for your brand, makes sense for your brand. That's cultural pipeline is another framework as well that the book was really good in having to force me to try and explain it in like visual terms. You know what I mean? But it's just stuff that's how it's always worked.
Yeah. Okay.
But so yeah, that's actually been really interesting for brands. They just, as soon as they see that, they go, and it enables me to then explain how they can be relevant in mainstream. So for instance, something like the World Cup. Mm-hmm. Imagine how much shit we're going to see around the World Cup. Like, seriously, right? I'm like, stop talking about the World Cup as a cultural moment. It's a calendar moment in football culture. So just that slight shift is not a cultural moment. It's a big calendar moment in the whole of football culture. You also need to be investing in what's happening across the rest of football culture. You know what I'm trying to say? At all times. Yeah. Instead of just showing up at the World Cup, selling comes and goes, and you're extracting from that culture. Yeah, so that's where I feel quite strongly about making sure that there's mutual benefit and that there's a way of doing things that's actually pushing the culture forward and then being part of it almost naturally. Okay. That's the area of play.
We are almost at close.
I know.
So I want to get one last thing in. What like subcultures or trends should we be what are you excited about at the minute? Give me something that, you talked a lot around the kind of the framework, what you've done, but let's leave. So if you're in with a brand now, what are you maybe not the secret sauce, but what are you excited about?
I'm talking about the fact that social is at the tipping point of mainstream culture. And there is subcultures happening and things happening beyond social where a lot of brands are still over-investing in. And they need to not put all those eggs in that one basket, because those pages are not owned by the brand. They're owned by the platforms and the algorithms. And I think people get confused with that because they go, we've got so many followers, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's great, but you don't own them.
Well,
You don't own
you
them.
posted about it this morning.
The Cortez one,
The
yeah.
Cortez stuff.
I mean,
the
that
very,
is the
very
reality.
recent example.
That's a reality.
Yeah.
That's a reality. And so
I think Clint will be okay. But
because he's understood about all the
he
other
is in the
parts of the
culture.
part. Yes.
Yeah.
And that is the difference. So, but big brands are not. I mean, some are obviously, but there are quite a few who want to be culture relevant, but they need to do the thing properly and they need to invest differently. And what they do is they throw money into what is usually a industry buzzword. And right now it's social. I'm like, yeah, but we did social 20 years ago. We're already on to the next. And so just like back yourself a little bit and go, okay, I'm gonna experiment a little bit in something else. Might be lawless. You know what I mean? So things are happening in subcultures already, but everyone's eyes are only looking at mainstream. But this is where the growth is happening. And that can also happen with markets. If you look at Bad Bunny, South America, Africa, Afrobeats. We want to look at, what's happening in America, but look what's happening in emerging / growth areas where people should already be starting to get into, you know what I mean? Okay. And that's interesting. So for me, it's about 3 things. We're in a generational shift. For the first time ever, we've got workplace and consumers from boomers to Gen A, all different.
Yeah.
All expect different things from brands.
Yeah.
All expect different ways of communicating. All expect different ways of working. So that's happening. We've got fandom. So, I mean, look at sports. Look at all of the fandom era. You know what I mean? How is your brand going to stand out when everyone else is also doing the same thing and all the brands are doing quite formulaic work? And then the last one for me is new markets. So challenger brands coming in, new markets coming in, and people are underestimating those because those different generations that I talked about, they are looking at different things as well. Yeah. So it's exciting. For me, this is the perfect place to really sort of reset what you're doing. And that's what I'm excited about. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Information?
Totally. I mean, I think that's a nice place to wrap. I mean, we have to wrap. It's time. But wow. I mean, it feels like we could do a part 2 quite easily, doesn't it?
That's what I'm saying about the book. I'm like, it's so hard to cover things, you know what I mean? And that's even with the book, it was really hard to go, God, every single chapter could be its own book. But it's the holistic looking. Right. Yeah, exactly. So it is, it's tough to kind of do cultural stuff because it's not easy. And it's nuanced. Yeah. So I hope that was helpful. And
thank you for coming onto the Founders Lounge. You've talked a lot around being a founder twice. Yeah. Well, 3 times. I don't know. I've lost track how many times.
I hope it was helpful for the founders because I don't think we've spent enough time on the day-to-day stuff.
Well, no, but you've shown quite clearly how, building your own business, you can then go and no one's even really sure what you kind of do, but a brand takes you and goes, actually, can you come and do that internally? So it's, the founder piece is a part of the journey in terms of what you've done.
Absolutely. And it's additive. Remember, the additiveness, nothing is ever wasted. So even if you fail at your business, or if you think you fail, you're actually just going to take the learnings from that and make it better the next time around. That's how it works. So, cool.
Real. Thanks.
You're welcome. Nice to see you, Josh.
Can we, where can we, what's the thing they do at the end of things? Where can we find you? Platform 13.
Yeah.
Follow you on LinkedIn, Leila Fataar.
All the places.
All the places. Social, but you're not on social anymore because
I'm on social, but I'm just saying.
Don't be on social.
Don't be only on social. Yeah,
is that a ruse to get people to come off social? So you're like the only one.
It's all strategic, Josh. All strategic.
Well, cool. Thank you.
Nice. No worries. Nice to see you.